Venice is another world, an enchanted place where sea becomes land, cars are boats, streets are canals, and reality and fantasy blur. Walking alone on the back streets of Venice, something bewitches and takes hold of you. This is magical, mysterious Venice. The city's very existence defies reason. Built on mud flats and wooden stilts, it's a patchwork of land and sea. Yet this watery town became an empire, and for some 800 years grew in strength, wealth, and pride. From the 10th through the 17th centuries, Venice was the gateway to the East. Merchants from all over the known world met here. And Piazza San Marco was the grand entryway to the city. My daughter Sarah and I are off to explore this, the most famous piazza in all the world. Pigeons may just outnumber tourists in Piazza San Marco. Some say they descended from birds the Doge released every Palm Sunday. The bell tower, the Campanile, collapsed in 1902. The only casualty was the caretaker's cat. The new Campanile, completed in 1912, is true to the original. The lion is the symbol of Venice, and nothing better represents Venetian tenacity, glory, and pride. The gem of the piazza is the Basilica of San Marco. Unlike any other church in Italy, it looks as though it jumped straight from the pages of a fairy tale. Around the year 800, Venice was shopping for a patron saint. A couple of merchants stole the remains of Saint Mark from Alexandria. They hid the saint in a basket of pork to repulse the Muslim customs officers and to keep them from checking the contents. Saint Mark was a handy traveling companion. He woke the sleeping crew during a storm and saved them from destruction. Merchants returning from their travels always stopped at the Basilica to pay homage to their patron saint and to offer jewels or artwork that they picked up on their travels. The celebrated bronze horses, stolen from Constantinople, are one of Venice's most prized spoils. The horses outside are copies. The originals are on display in a small museum upstairs in the Basilica. When the interior of San Marco is illuminated, the mosaics sparkle. It's best to stop by the Basilica to find out the lighting schedule. After paying homage to San Marco, merchants loaded their wares into smaller boats and set off down the Grand Canal. To follow their route, take the Vaporetto down the Grand Canal.
Buongiorno. We have 1 3-day pass, please.
If you plan more than one trip, buy a 1, 3, or 7-day pass. Stamp it in the yellow machine to validate it. If San Marco is Venice's exotic reception room, the Grand Canal is a main street of the imagination. Lacy palaces line both sides of the canal, like set pieces for a fantasy. Those plundering, seafaring Venetian merchants traveled, traded, and amassed great fortunes. The palaces were their houses. That's why many have the prefix "ca," which is short for casa, the Italian word for house. The rich families were so competitive about displaying their wealth that sumptuary laws were passed to limit this competition. The state ordered all gondolas painted black, excessive finery in palaces was outlawed, and a limit was even placed on the length of trains of women's dresses. Ah, but the Venetians found a way. Women began wearing enormous platform clogs so they could lengthen their dresses. The shoes were so high, women couldn't walk without the help of two escorts to hold them up. Venetians were an odd mix of the democratic and the tyrannical. The wealthy families elected their doge, even put checks and balances on his power. At the same time, citizens regularly denounced each other to the secret police. The accuser slipped his complaint into one of the many lions' mouths around the city. Returning merchants stopped here. The Rialto Bridge is the center of Venice. It's the trading district, the very heart of town. In its heyday, the Rialto Bridge was a meeting place for merchants from all over the world. Just next to the bridge on the west side of the river, the pesceria and the herberia, the fish and vegetable markets, have been going strong for 1,000 years. The alleys and quays are still named for the items traded here.
Basta quei cagotti, che dici così?
Signora, sta vedendo? Sì, lo giriamo. Messo in questa maniera.
The Rialto district still buzzes with foreigners, but today they are the tourists who descend in massive droves to shop. The commercial district between the Rialto and San Marco is called the Mercerie. A visitor to this area in the 1600s described the cloth of gold, rich damasks, and other silks, perfumers, apothecaries, and innumerable cages of nightingales. Today, many of the shops are overpriced tourist traps. But the color, life, and energy of the market is still going strong. The area around San Marco and Rialto is fiercely touristed, especially around midday when tour boats drop off thousands of people for just a few hours of sightseeing. A few hours in Venice isn't enough to do the city justice. Spend the night, explore the back streets, get away from the crowds. There are many hotels here in every price range, from palaces to canal-side pensions, though reservations are a must. In off-season, you can have the truly magical experience of having Venice all to yourself. When I planned my trip to Venice, I abandoned all sumptuary laws and decided to live it up. Fairy Tale Venice has a fairy tale hotel. We're staying at one of the finest, most beautiful hotels in the world, the Cipriani. Luxurious accommodation, attentive service, and fine cuisine. It's Venetian hospitality at its best. The hotel's located on an island across from San Marco and away from the crowds. It has its own ferry to the mainland. Every day or evening, you get to enter Venice through the front door. You know, it's crazy, but most of the tourists here rarely get beyond Piazza San Marco. The way I like to see Venice, or any other city, is to set out on a mission and see what happens along the way. My daughter Sarah's joined me. We're going to look for a mask store near Campo Santa Margherita. There are 3 terrific crowd-free neighborhoods to explore in Venice: Dossodoro, San Polo, and Cannaregio. We're starting in Dossodoro, literally hardback, the largest spine of dry land in Venice. Stretching the length of the Dorsodoro is the Zattere, a long promenade, a favorite for strolling Venetians. Having a mission takes you to neighborhoods you might never see otherwise, and something surprising always pops up. Along the way, we stumble on a gondola repair shop and wander past palaces, cafes, and charming campos. I'm always on the lookout for a restaurant to come back to for dinner.
5 kinds of risotto, you can't go wrong with that.
Detoured to the nearby museum, the Accademia. Once the city's art school, the Accademia now holds a collection of important Venetian paintings from the 14th through the 18th centuries. Of particular note are the masterpieces by Gentile Bellini and Vittore Carpaccio. The back streets and canals of Dorsoduro are too beautiful to rush through. Navigating here isn't all that hard.
Well, I can tell you run this.
Well, okay, maybe I am a little lost, but it doesn't matter. In Venice, you can always follow signs back to one of the major landmarks.
This could be it.
Just when you think you're completely turned around, you find what you've been looking for. This is sunny Campo Santa Margherita, a lively Venetian meeting place. To get to the mask shop, we cross the Ponte de Pugni, literally the Bridge of Fists. It was tradition for members of rival clans to battle it out on this bridge. 2 footprints mark the starting point.
This is where they try to throw you, right over the side. Into the drink. This is it.
We've arrived at Kamacana, the mask store. Kamacana's owner, Mario Belloni, started making masks for fun when he was an architecture student, and he ended up researching and reviving the ancient art of Venetian mask making.
This was used by
the doctors, by the medicines.
doctors would wear this while they were working?
During the plague.
Didn't it scare the patients?
Oh, it was really scaring. But the meaning, the deep meaning of the mask was to scare the spirits that have brought the sickness. In fact, they had a stick in the hand not to touch directly the sick people. And
So the doctor would wear this and touch them with a stick?
yes, to avoid to touch them with the hands.
A series of wars and the loss of trade routes dealt a death blow to the Venetian Empire. The Venetian love of adventure turned to a love of gambling and parties. By the 18th century, Venice was Europe's party city. Carnival, the festival that's a last fling before Lent, lasted for months. Masks became a way of life. Gamblers hid behind them, men and women flirted under their cover. People wore them so often that the clergy complained, insisting that masks should at least be removed in church.
If you put the mask on the face, it gets alive. You lose your personality and you become something different.
The Venetian Empire continues to decline. The population today is half what it was 50 years ago. The young leave in droves for the mainland. Tourism dominates the economy. But there are still pockets of this town where locals outnumber visitors. I'm off in search of working-class Venice. Cannaregio. The name of this section was originally Regione delle Canne, or District of Bamboo, after the marshland it was built on. This is lived-in Venice. It's Sunday, and after church, lunch is underway in the neighborhood trattorias. Everyone is out for a stroll, a chat, a little entertainment.
È dura una vita, ma se tu ti metti, vero, col marmo, stavo vecchio.
The back streets of Cannaregio are the loneliest in Venice. This is the place to see how Venetians live. The exquisite church, the Madonna dell'Orto, is named for a miracle-working statue of the Madonna found in a nearby garden. Leaving sunny Cannaregio behind, I'm off to another undiscovered neighborhood, mysterious San Polo. San Polo is located across the Grand Canal from Cannaregio. I found my way back to the Grand Canal, but unfortunately there are only 3 bridges that cross it. So I'm going to do what the locals do. I'm going to take a traghetto. The locals stand up for the ride. No problemo. The traghetto is a ferry that shuttles people across the Grand Canal. While gondola rides can be expensive, traghetto rides cost only pennies and can save a lot of walking. In the afternoons, try the Venetian ritual of an ombre, a drink and a snack. Ombre means shadow, and in the shade of Domori, the city's oldest wine bar, you can come to love this tradition.
Alziamo il bicchiere, facciamo cin cin, beviamo, 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 tutto il mondo fa cin cin, sollevando il bicchiere di vin, cin cin.
The Domori is a good starting point for exploring one of the oldest, most atmospheric sections of Venice. San Polo is a mysterious maze of narrow streets and canals. I love the sudden campos, the hidden gardens, the nooks and crannies of San Polo. San Polo is also home to the grand 15th century church I Frari. Dominating this superb church is the Assumption of the Virgin, a 16th century work by the Venetian artistic superstar Tiziano Vecellio, known as Titian. The drama and bold colors of the Assumption startled and dismayed the friars, who commissioned the work in 1516. The sacristy holds another masterpiece. The triptych, by Giovanni Bellini, is a luminous example of Venetian Renaissance art. The painting seems curved, so great is Bellini's use of perspective. A gondola ride. It's part of the charm of Venice, but it's expensive, so why stick with the tourists? We're getting away from the gondola stations at San Marco and Rialto and starting out at Campo Santa Maria Formosa, where the canals are quieter, smaller, and more picturesque. Now, Marco, we'd like to see some place that's interesting. Not too many tourists. Is it possible here to show us?
Yes, it's in the...
Choose your gondolier and your route according to your tastes and negotiate the price before you start.
Okay.
Okay, we do that.
Let's go.
Let's do it. Let's hit the road.
Questa quella per me sono acqua calce di tono, di tono mi vedo, del mio cuore l'impero non cielo, meglio ad una che l'altra metà.
Oi, hermano, ayo, bibi.
Man, you really have to be an expert at steering around here.
So di questa mi torna quandita, forse un'altra, forse un'altra, domanda sarà un'altra.
Ciao.
Forse un'altra, domanda sarà.
House Marco Polo house.
This very
Yes, it's a Marco Polo house.
Marco Polo's house. Great. He's the guy who got out and saw the world. Wow, that's beautiful.
It's a
Beautiful.
museo.
La costoro evidenza e condono, di che il fatto li fiora la vita. O so di questa mi torna guardita, forse un'altra, domanda sarà un'altra, forse un'altra, domanda sarà.
Remember that restaurant we discovered wandering the back streets of Dorsoduro? We loved the selection of risotto on the menu, so we called for a reservation. Cantinoni Storico specializes in traditional Venetian food like this risotto with scampi and artichokes. Owner Alessandro Tridenti tells me that if he can please Venetians, he can please anyone. The risotto melts in your mouth.
No, welcome to Venice. And your first Venetian risotto. Cheers.
Venice can be a culinary treat, but it also serves up plenty of mediocre, overpriced food. It's best to get away from tourist areas and tourist menus. Explore the back streets of Venice, and along the way, you'll find an out-of-the-way restaurant that appeals. It's a good idea to book a table during high season. I'm finishing my dinner with the signature dessert of Venice, tiramisu. It's layers of sponge cake, mascarpone, chocolate, and coffee. Now in Italian, tiramisu means pick me up. And after this, I'm going to need someone to tiramisu and carry me too out of this restaurant. The next day, I admit I'm still a little weak from too much chocolate. A boat trip to the islands and the lagoon seems the perfect solution. Vaporettos and tour boats leave frequently for the lagoon islands of Murano, Burano, and Torcello. We're catching the boat from San Marco. Murano is a quick 15 minutes. Burano and Torcello are about 40 minutes away. Murano is famous for glass. In the 14th century, officials ordered the Venetian glassworks moved to Murano to lessen the fire danger in Venice proper and to guard the craftsman's secret techniques. Woe to the artisan who tried to skip town. The glassmaking technique was so jealously guarded that errant glassmakers were hunted down, even executed.
Ashtrays are great.
The glass is tempting but difficult to carry home. We're off to the next island for more portable souvenirs. Lace is to Burano as glass is to Murano. The delicate lace stitching is thought to be derived from the technique used to repair fishing nets. Today, the lacework adorns shirts, tablecloths, and doilies.
This seems like a good one for that sort of
Even
thing.
Brandon Solcheck might go for this.
She might, yeah.
She's got the polos.
For me, the colorful streets are the high points of this fishing village. Back when fishing was bigger than tourism, the women of Burano painted their houses in bright colors so their husbands could pick out their homes from the sea. Nowadays, residents are required to repaint every year, and the color of the house must remain the same. The most remote and wild of the islands is Torcello. It was the original site of the earliest settlers, back when barbarians drove them into the lagoon. Built in 639, the lovely cathedral on Torcello is Venice's oldest building. The simple interior is adorned with splendid mosaics. These, from the 13th century, tell the story of the Last Judgment in vivid detail. Wandering through the quiet, mystical grounds of the Basilica, it seems no surprise that this little island was the birthplace of Venice. I'm enchanted, bewitched, and undone by Venice. At night, strains of Vivaldi seep out from the doors of churches and concert halls into the moonlit canals. Cafes and bars brighten the campos. The pigeons are sleeping, and visitors and Venetians alike are out and about. Having a glass of champagne at one of the old-world cafes in San Marco, you can watch the Venice pageant as so many people have for so many centuries. Magical, mysterious Venice. In Death in Venice, the classic novel by Thomas Mann, Venice is described as half fairy tale, half snare. Well, I am snared, hooked, shipwrecked, lost, and totally captivated by Venice. You're going to have to take me away from this place by force. That is, if you can find me. Ciao.